Bingo Airsoft Designs, designed to dominate.
Hi, this is Rudy with Bingo Airsoft Designs, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to service or access the trigger assembly in the Advanced System 5 Airsoft gun. I already have this gun partially disassembled, the uppers removed from the lower, and I have the engine removed. You can see how to do that in a separate video. But once the engine's taken out of the gun, you can then get access to the trigger unit, which is located right up in here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is actually remove the feed spring, which sits above the trigger. You're going to take the hop up out, and then using a 1.5 millimeter Allen key, just make a couple turns on the set screw that's on the left hand side, and the hop up block comes off of the feed spring. Then you're going to want to come back here and remove the locking screw and remove the stock on the gun. At this point you can actually just pull the feed mechanism out, detach the motor, and this comes completely out of the gun. Makes it very easy to service that. I'm going to go ahead and set this back on there for now. Now once the feed spring is out of the way, you can get access to the trigger area. Now there are two wire harnesses attached to the trigger. There's this 3-wire and then another 2-wire that's tucked down inside. The 3-wire is what's used to connect to the HPA engine, and the 2-wire is what's used to connect to the box mag. So you're going to want to use a needle nose pliers and actually detach the 3-wire harness, and you can also detach the 2-wire harness, and you leave that inside the gun because it's attached to the box mag circuit board back here, but you can see that that's now removed from the trigger. Using a number 1 Phillips screwdriver, you loosen the screws that are attached to the trigger assembly. There's 2 screws, one in the very back here, and then there's one right up here at the front. You go ahead and take the screws out. Well, at this point you can actually push up on the trigger, and you can see the entire assembly will actually lift out of the gun. And here's the trigger assembly. I'm going to go ahead and take that screw out. The trigger assembly, which has the switch right here which controls the semi and the full auto, and it has a cover right here which covers the actual trigger lever and the trigger switch. Again, using your Phillips screwdriver, you can just take out these 2 screws right here. Here's the trigger, standard M4 trigger that it uses, the trigger switch, and there's actually a small hole right down here that you could install a set screw, and that would actually allow you to adjust the throw on the trigger. If you wanted to shorten up the throw a little bit, you can actually make this a speed trigger by adding a little set screw right down there. I'm going to go ahead and put this cover back in place and show you that there are actually 2 plates that are inside the gun. And they're called the saddle plates. These are the activators for the full auto and semi-auto. They have imprinted on the back a left and a right, so you know which side that they go on. And on the trigger you'll see that these tabs at the top line up with this top plate on top of the trigger assembly. So you can see that these 2 fit right in there, and as you move the trigger back and forth, it activates the switch here on the back. That's how we get the ambidextrous function out of the gun. So to reinstall the trigger mechanism back in the gun, you actually have to put the saddles in the gun first. The right one goes in on the right hand side. Kind of put that in there and feed it through so you see that comes through on that side. The left one goes on the left hand side. Again, these little tabs that are on the top of these plates should be upward. Now once they're in place, you're going to want to keep a finger down in there to keep those 2 pressed up against the side. Take your trigger assembly, put that in nose first in between the 2 plates, and then slide it forward until the trigger pops into the trigger slot at the bottom of the gun, and then the assembly fits down in here. Now what you'll do is you'll slide these trigger plates until they lock in with the top plate on the trigger assembly. There you go. And then you can just reinstall the 2 screws. There's a short one for the front, and there's a slightly longer one in the back. Now once the trigger is back in place, you're going to want to take the wire harness that runs from the box mag mechanism and reinstall this 2-wire harness here. You'll need to use some needle nose pliers. Kind of grab this connector right at the top and put it back down inside there. that into place and then sort of pull the wire out of the way. And you're going to want to get the 3-wire harness and have that feed back in there. Use your needle nose pliers and then just push that right onto the circuit board. There you go. And feed this back underneath. If there's a bridge here, feed this back in place so it pops out in the middle of the gun, because this is what actually feeds right up into the chassis, into the circuit board. Alright, now that the trigger's back in place and my wiring's all set to go, I'm going to reinstall the box mag mechanism. So I'm going to start by, I'll take the stock back off. I'm going to pull this motor out of the way. Now on the motor, there's a slot, a V slot right in the back here, and that's where the wire for the motor will go. You'll see it actually gets pushed into that place by the feed mechanism, but just be aware that this motor wire goes into that slot that's down in there. You'll see it's designed for that to fit. Now you just get this feed spring mechanism, feed it right through. This goes right into the slot there. Hook the motor into place, slide that in, and it's good to go. Put the stock back on. Let's put the locking screw in place so it doesn't pop off. Alright, now I've got the spring right here. Just run this right up to the front. Get your hop-up block, attach it to this spring. Tighten this set screw right here with a 1.5 hex key until you just feel resistance from the spring. Don't go any further than that. You can actually test to make sure that the spring is holding it in place. And then slide that in back into its position there. When you reinstall the engine, if you're winding BBs here, you can actually hear this wind. You can even put BBs in here and test the winding right now. If the BBs don't appear up here at the top of the hop-up block, that means that this screw is too tight, and then just back this off just a little bit to allow the BBs to pass through, and then you'll see them appear right here at the top. And that's it. That's how you access the trigger mechanism. If you ever have any problems or need to service that, it's pretty simple to take out actually.